Let me ask you something for a second. When was the last time you actually replaced your paprika? Not used it, but replaced it. Because if you're like most people, there's probably a little jar of paprika sitting somewhere in your kitchen right now. Maybe in a cabinet, maybe on a spice rack, and it might have been there for quite a while. You know, spices are funny little ingredients. They sit quietly in the cabinet, sometimes for months, sometimes even for years, waiting to be used again. And yet, those tiny jars might be some of the most powerful ingredients in your entire kitchen. Really, they are. Hello, friend, and welcome to the This Old Baker podcast. I'm Kim from This Old Baker, where we believe good meals start with simple ingredients and a well-stocked pantry. So pull up a chair here at the pantry table, and let's spend a few minutes talking about real kitchens, simple cooking, and the pantry staples that make everyday meals easier. And today, we're talking about spices, those small jars that quietly sit in the cabinet but can completely transform the food we cook. You know, it's very easy to overlook spices. They're small, they don't take up much room, and most of the time, they're tucked away somewhere above the stove or inside a cabinet where you can't quite see all of them at once. But here's the interesting thing. Spices may be tiny, but they carry enormous flavor. Just a pinch of cinnamon can change a whole bowl of oatmeal. A little garlic powder can wake up a pot of soup. Paprika can bring warmth and color to a skillet meal. Even something as simple as black pepper can add a little spark to a dish. Tiny ingredients. Big difference. I remember one night not too long ago when I opened my spice cabinet looking for cumin. Simple task. Just grab the jar and keep cooking. Except when I opened the cabinet, I realized something. I didn't have one jar of cumin. I had three. 3 jars, all sitting right there on the same shelf. Apparently, every time I went to the grocery store, I convinced myself I was out of cumin. So I bought another jar, and another one, and another one. You might have had that moment too. A spice you swear you don't have, only to discover 2 more hiding behind something else. And that's when I realized something important. The problem wasn't that I didn't have enough spices. The problem was that I couldn't see them. That was the real issue, because when spices hide, we forget about them. And when we forget about them, we stop using them. Which means we miss out on one of the easiest ways to make food taste better. Now, here's something interesting about spices. They don't spoil the same way fresh food does. They won't suddenly go bad overnight. But they do slowly lose their strength. That's because spices contain natural oils. Those oils carry aroma and flavor. Over time, those oils fade, which means the spice becomes less vibrant, less fragrant, less powerful in the dish. But the good news is, checking a spice is incredibly easy. Just open the jar and smell it. That's it. If the aroma is strong, the spice is still doing its job. If the scent feels faint or dull, it may be time to replace it. Your nose is the best spice tester you have. Here's another little kitchen trick that can make spices shine. You know, sometimes spices need a moment to wake up. And one of the best ways to do that is by adding them early in the cooking process. When spices warm gently in oil or butter, their aroma blooms. the flavor spreads through the entire dish. Even 30 seconds in a warm skillet can make a noticeable difference. Suddenly, the kitchen smells incredible, and the dish tastes richer, deeper, more complete. It's a small step, but it changes everything. Take a moment and think about your own spice cabinet. Maybe you're standing in the kitchen right now. Maybe you're driving or folding laundry. But picture that shelf for a second. Little jars lined up. Paprika, garlic powder, oregano, chili powder, maybe a jar of cinnamon. Those small containers represent hundreds of meals, hundreds of possibilities. Because spices don't just season food, they shape flavor. The same ingredients can taste completely different, depending on which spices you choose. That's actually where many of the seasoning blends I make for this old baker begin, right there on the spice shelf. Those mixes are simply combinations of spices that work well together. Soup blends, skillet seasonings, pantry spice mixes that help turn simple ingredients into full meals. Because once you understand spices, you start realizing something. The pantry becomes incredibly flexible. A pot of beans can become chili, or taco filling, or soup, just by changing the spices. Same ingredients, different story. And honestly, that's one of the quiet joys of cooking. Taking familiar ingredients and giving them new life. Just a pinch here, a sprinkle there, and suddenly the dish feels completely new again. Spices invite curiosity. They invite creativity. And the more comfortable you become using them, the more confident your cooking becomes. One small habit can help with that. Every once in a while, take 5 minutes and reset your spice shelf. Nothing complicated, just pull the jars out, line them up, look at them, open a few, and smell them. You may discover spices you forgot you had. Maybe smoked paprika hiding in the back, or nutmeg that only comes out during the holidays. Sometimes simply seeing those jars again is enough to inspire your next meal. So the next time you open your spice cabinet, take a moment to really notice those little jars. They may be small, but they carry enormous flavor. They are some of the most powerful ingredients in the entire kitchen. Tiny jars, big impact. And if you'd ever like to see some of the seasoning blends and pantry mixes I make from these same spices, you can always visit me at thisoldbaker.com. That's where I share the mixes and pantry recipes I use right here in my own kitchen. From my kitchen to yours, I'm Kim from This Old Baker. Until next time, keep those jars full and something good in the oven.